Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Brian's Logic, Neil, Eli, Refracted, Adam, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
So,
is that it? Oh, great live start. One person says hello. Well, hello, Brian. It's good to have you here. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge that's a horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
No, but they'll tell you all about it on Globebusters.
yeah, on Globebusters, they want to talk about what the horizon is and could be and how, why does it do this and why does it do that? Yeah, that's what they want to talk about over there. But I still don't think they've come up with any evidence that it's Earth curve.
What the horizon is an assertion made in the positive by the globe Earth side of this discussion. They assert that it's a physical geometric limitation to your view at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as laid down in the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, where it takes the view from a photograph and puts it side on where you see both the photographer and the target. Now, when detailing the target with a feet and inches value in the mathematics, you can exclude perspective and claim the only reason things disappear is because of a physical geometric limitation to your view, formerly known as Earth curve, marked with an X and labelled horizon in the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, which in reality is a differential calculation between surface level, horizontal, and eye level, horizontal. So it's a perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator in name only. In reality, it's deriving a point below surface level from a calculation with the difference between eye level and surface level. That is where you get your Earth curve from. It's not real. It only exists in maths, and the maths it exists in has taken the effects of perspective and detailed them as Earth curve by way of a differential calculation between eye level and surface level. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Are you talking about underneath airplanes?
If Earth was turning to induce a 15 degrees an hour deviation, claimed to be shown in things like fiber optic gyros, then that would mean that Earth was a non-inertial turning reference frame turning beneath the fixed frame of the gyroscope. Now, if that is the case, then Earth is turning beneath aeroplanes, Brian. That is correct. Do we observe Earth turning as a separate non-inertial turning reference frame inducing drifting gyros underneath aeroplanes, Brian?
No, we do not.
So we don't have a Coriolis effect then. There is no proof Earth's turning, and the claimed 15 degrees an hour drift is not observed. But it must be if we are turning underneath as a non-inertial turning reference frame, and they claim we will see Coriolis effect, meaning we are a non-inertial turning reference frame, Earth as a sphere, turning beneath an inertial reference frame to induce a 15 degrees an hour drift. The one we don't see.
No, you don't understand. Earth is so big and it's moving. You're not going to feel it. It is moving, but it's because it's so big.
That's fascinating. Meanwhile, they claim there's a Coriolis deviation at 15 degrees an hour, Neil. The Coriolis deviation is only induced by Earth being a non-inertial turning reference frame and turning beneath an inertial reference frame to induce the claimed 15 degrees an hour drift the globe says we'll have, and we do not.
Well, to have a non-inertial turning reference frame, that has some requirements, doesn't it?
It certainly does, John. What would they be?
Well, you need a radius, and then you'd have to have a centralized point of rotation to claim that.
Where would one acquire such things from in physical reality, John?
The radius, you could measure elevation angles from a flat Earth and calculate a spherical value.
Hold on. So we're measuring Earth as a flat plane and then deriving it as a sphere after measuring it flat?
Yep.
That sounds stupid.
That's the only way they can do it.
The only way you can do it? Well, surely just measuring Earth as a sphere would be one way to do it. But Earth would have to be a sphere for that to happen.
Well, you would need the circumference to have geometry, and that would be what you would call the geometric horizon, would be the circumference of your sphere.
But that's a flat plane.
Yeah.
But that's an angle derivation measurement. The first instance is a flat plane measurement to the equator. That would be the minimum elevation angle to Polaris. That's a flat plane, not a sphere.
Right. So that wouldn't exist. So if you imagine that doesn't exist, and you're just trying to measure if you're on a sphere or not,
you're not.
I thought that's what you were asking.
Well, you say if you're trying to measure if you're on a sphere or not, and that method measures that you're on a flat plane, well, that's one tick in the I've just measured a flat plane box. Where's the ticks in that I've just measured a sphere box?
Well, that one involves you measuring an angle to a tangent point.
Right, to a tangent point. We'd have to know that we've got a sphere Earth beneath us to take a tangent point to, though, would we not?
Yeah, that's kind of begging the question off the jump, yeah.
Okay. But in terms of actual measurements, do we acquire, for instance, a horizontal plane of reference by measuring to a sphere, or do we acquire the horizontal plane of reference from a flat plane?
Oh,
Well, to that tangent point thing, no, you can't have a tangent point without a tangent line. So if you're trying to have the sextant be it, are we talking about the sextant?
Depends.
No.
Half of their tangent claims are with respect to the horizon, but in this instance, the answer is actually no. So the tangent that's being detailed in this instance, Eli, would be the Dingleberry Earth.
Oh, but there's no line. What line?
Well, that's we when we're doing celestial navigation, for example, you would establish a line to the horizon so that you can establish a horizontal plane of reference for your angles to the stars. But in this instance, they're assuming Earth is automatically a sphere and then drawing out a flat plane of reference on top of it and calling the point that you're standing the tangent. Dingleberry Earth.
Right. I think
Eli's talking about something. Are you talking about...
I don't think because I was arguing exactly this, and he kept his language very ambiguous, and I said, wait a minute. But when we're talking about measurement with the sextant and making the observation of the star, choosing the star, and then, setting your sights on it, what we're talking about with tangent points is completely... There's no step that includes that. Like, all you're doing is working off of a plane, like, the entire time. There's no tangent point that's relevant to anything. It's just tangent to the plane that you're working off of.
But
has nothing to do with the horizon.
No, because they are claiming, without saying it, that they're doing a dip correction from a refracted horizon that's refracted off of a globe's geometric horizon. So they're actually shooting the angle between the eye and the horizon to them is a tangent to a refracted optical phenomenon. Now, you can't do geometry on optical phenomena no more than you can weigh an inferior mirage. It's nonsense. but that's what they're actually claiming. They're not even using their globe's geometric position, the horizon, because it's not doesn't exist for a start, and secondly, mathematically it won't work. So they have to have an over 6 hour horizon, 7 over 6 hour horizon in specific that they're claiming to take the dip from. Because when they use a 7 over 6 hour horizon, that allows them to get close to the actual number. And close is good enough for them. Because for them, it doesn't have to be exact. But if you were trying to do something like that, they would eat you alive for it not being exact. But what they're trying to do, without claiming it, is shoot a tangent to a refracted horizon within their paradigm. Now, how can you have a tangent to something that's not geometric? And the dip is coming from that up to the eye line. That's the calculation they're making for the dip. So they are using two different tangents. A tangent right underneath the boat that's going to will make the globe a dingleberry, and a tangent to a refracted position that they're claiming is refracted off of this dingleberry below the boat.
Makes sense.
But they can't show any of this.
Did you all follow that? It's taken me quite some time for me to literally just be able to prick my ears up and follow along with every bit of what Brian's just said. It's taken at least a couple of weeks of reiteration, let alone the initial understanding. So if you did not follow along with what Brian just said, because it is extremely complicated, it's describing the tangent derivative for Dingleberry Earth. That's from your feet out to space in either direction or in all directions, so that you've got a plane to measure from in the first place. Well, that's just a plane you're measuring from, but it's got a Dingleberry Earth dangling below it that's not being used in any way, shape, or form because you're using everything from a plane. Then, because they're utilizing the horizon in celestial navigation, they're going to claim that they've got a dip position to the refracted horizon position that is always apparent in their sextant view. So they've got a tangent, another tangent. Now, neither tangent is real. One is automatically assumed to be beneath your feet, the Dingleberry Earth with tangent out to space. The other is assumed to a non-geometric refracted position that cannot be measured geometrically. And then the dip is back calculated from that. Not simple, but that's what they do. Layer upon layer and layer upon layer of nonsense.
Yeah,
well, it's just ridiculous then.
Pardon?
It is because it is ridiculous because the first tangent is a tangent to a pre-assumed sphere, and the second tangent is to a second pre-assumed sphere. A second location that is not a location because it is a refracted position based off of the pre-assumption of the original sphere. So they technically have no tangents.
Before you tell him how worse it is, 1 second, Adam. Shout out to Sterling Archer, who says, I've been trying to send Arwin Arwin deleted the messages before I could really read the end of it. Thank you for the super chat, Sterling Archer. Obviously, it was detrimental to Arwin because you've removed it as I was reading it out. There we go. Thank you for the super chat. Whatever it said. I don't know. It's been retracted by Arwin. Go ahead, Adam.
So, slightly worse than that because it's supposedly a refracted position of a geometric object, but that's all outlining the fact that we are therefore having to accept the horizon as the leading edge of a ball. Something they can't demonstrate, something the maths won't demonstrate, but something they want to accept so they can then, as Brian says, get near enough to it. But fundamentally, they are claiming, and this is what I'd never let them get past, don't need any of that. What's that horizon? Whether it's refracted or not, what are you claiming that you're going to do, apply all these numbers to? What is the initial part of the claim? The horizon is the leading edge of a ball.
Hey, Rufy. Hey, buddy. How's that geometric horizon working out for you, buddy? Good? Yeah? It's only been, 3 years?
I have a question about that first tangent, the one that starts at your feet and goes out into space.
Right.
Has that got a name in the mathematics?
Yes, it's
Just
got
a
a horizon
plane.
name ascribed to it. They give it a horizon title. Oh, if 10th was here, he'd know straight off the top of his head.
Well, they also call it surface level.
Do they call it surface level? They call it surface level in globe. Yeah, but is that... Yeah, it is, isn't it? Begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve maths. It's just Dingleberry Earth, isn't it? Hey, wow, I've never recognised that. Yes, indeed. The tangent drawn out in reference to Dingleberry Earth is just the tangent drawn at surface level in the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve maths. Have you just twigged that this just now?
Well, when you said, I looked at it and it says horizon, right? And that's where surface level appears to meet the sky, is it not?
Yes, that's correct.
So when you say horizon line or whatever, you're talking about where surface level appears to meet the sky.
And surface level is
So-
their tangent line. It's the Dingleberry
No,
line
but,
at the surface.
because this
you're
is
right.
not geometry. This is perspective, isn't it?
Yes.
So when we say what the horizon is and we invoke it, where the sky appears to meet the ground, it's no geometric meeting here. The only reason it appears to meet is due to the effects of perspective of looking at two flat planes parallel to each other, where they meet via perspective in the distance. But there's no geometric.
Isn't that what
That's
Nathan
what I-
calls
but
it?
dude,
Perspective
that's what
I
I
had
said.
Neil first. Hold on.
That's what I said.
Hold on. Go ahead, Neil.
I was just saying, isn't that why you call it perspective hijacking?
Yes.
But this is what I was saying when I said the globe has nothing to do with the observations, nothing to do with the math of anything, because there is no tangent to a tangent point. A tangent point is only a tangent point with a line.
Yes.
But that's not happening through observation. There's already a plane that they're dealing with from zero.
Correct. And that also speaks to, I think it was Brian that said this earlier. The moment they respond with refraction, it's the end of their geometric assertion. Their geometric assertion is Earth curve is the horizon. That's the end of their claim.
Well, I don't know if they can really claim that as a geometric.
Go on, John.
I was just going to say, I don't think they can claim that as a geometric claim if surface level is horizontal in the mathematics and geometry.
Indeed. And that's something we will point out from here forth. It's like, okay, this derivation of a tangent point horizon below a tangent Dingleberry horizon is at surface level if it's going to be a horizon, because it's where the surface level, as labelled in your maths as surface level, required for the geometry to assert a tangent point below surface level. That's where the horizon would actually be. You've got it marked below surface level. Nonsense.
Well, I put a diagram into Master B over the weekend, and it's from this guy who was doing this presentation on celestial navigation, and it's the same diagram as you've seen before, where the periscope, whereas if you had a sighting to the horizon from using a sextant, as if it was the periscope of a submarine, then there would be no dip correction, right? But they can't claim that. That is no good to them, because that means the horizon line that we're seeing is in a straight horizontal with the periscope, right? Now, it's not in a straight horizontal with the eye of the observer on top of a boat, on the deck of a boat. It's not in a straight horizontal. It's actually slightly below that person's horizontal view. But with the periscope, where the eye line is at the water, then it's in a straight horizontal. Now, if you go to the almanac, they treat, when they're talking in the almanac, all the site reduction tables, all pre-assume, this is from citation, not just me, all pre-assume that the eye line is at the water. So that means there is no dip correction required, because the horizon is in a straight line with the eye line. Now, how does that work on a globe?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Yep.
Because Earth's flat, that's how we have to deal with it. Site reduction tables taking things to be parallel, horizontal, in line when you're looking at the horizon from what? A couple of feet above with a periscope? That works because Earth's flat. It cannot work in any way, shape, or form spherically because it isn't going to run parallel, and you've got the Earth falling away from you, which it doesn't.
This is my point. Why would anybody? This show's been on for 21 minutes so far, even longer with the pre-show. The information coming from Flat Earth debate is second to none. Get on board, people.
Yes, please share the show. 70 people watching. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Now, this should be interesting. Pay attention, folks. What is gravity, Nathan?
Currently,
Well, what's science?
what science
what
is the
scientific
establishment
evidence?
of cause and effect by way of systematic experimentation based on a hypothesis that established the cause, or presumed cause at this stage, of an effect you observed in nature. That's the scientific method when dealing with natural science.
What is
So
the effect
we'd have-
point?
There is no effect in the current rhetoric. The effect is described mathematically only as the uneven distribution of mass causing the bending and warping of space and time, a fourth-dimensional pseudo-reality invented as a geometry by Einstein about 100 years ago, plus.
Well, there is an effect, but it came after the cause.
Sorry, bending
Einstein stated
space-time
the
is the
cause.
effect. Sorry, do you want to show me bending space-time?
No, the cause is bending space.
No, that's wrong.
That was in
No, that's wrong.
1915.
Incorrect. The cause in Einsteinian
Sorry,
pseudo-Riemannian force-space
the
geometry.
uneven distribution of mass causes the bending of space-time. Sorry.
That's
The
correct.
cause is the uneven distribution of mass causing the bending of space-time.
Correct.
But the effect that we see is a solar eclipse where a star appears to be in a different position than they think it should be.
What?
Now,
What the hell?
Yeah.
What? That's the phenomena? No. Not at all. Pseudo force space geometry is laid down by Einstein maths and is as it is. It's nothing to do with eclipses. Now, you might, through the mathematics of Einstein, attempt to describe where what you say they say it should be and isn't. That's not gravity.
But that's what I'm trying to say. That's why we're starting off with, they started with the cause. Einstein gave him a cause in 1915 with general relativity, right? 1905 special relativity, 1915 general relativity. And then in 1919, they went off and they made observations of a total solar eclipse, and a star seemed to have been in a different position than they expected it to be, right? Wherever they expected it to be. And it's fitted what Einstein said. That means proof.
I see. So it's an affirming the consequent, as all of their arguments tend to be.
Absolutely.
If we have bent space-time in this pseudo-geometry invented by me, then we will observe this star not doing what we expect it to do. We observed it not doing what we expected it to do. Therefore, gravity.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Well, meanwhile, gravity is not a force, even if you want to think of it as a force. You can think of it as a force, but it isn't. It's a pseudo-Riemannian force-space bent space-time geometry invented by a man named Einstein.
So in grade school, they're teaching it as mass attracting mass, correct?
That's correct.
Is that
because
still happening?
Yeah, you still need high school and below children to understand that gravity is a force, even though it isn't, and that force, that it isn't, is holding you to the side of a spinning water ball flying through a sky vacuum, which we're not. But because we're not, and there's no evidence to suggest that we would be, you need to overcome the argument for why we're not flying off something that isn't spinning when they say it is. Therefore, you need a force of gravity. To do that, until you've been thoroughly indoctrinated that there is a force, then you can move on understanding that we are on a ball to learn what pseudo force-based time bending is.
Well, now in that one, isn't the deviation from horizontal how they describe things falling to the center of Earth?
Yes, they will need a horizontal plane of reference, and they just push it out, kick the can down the road, so to speak, and make the entirety of space the flat plane of reference. But you're going to need a flat Earth for that.
Yeah, that's the problem. They keep using a flat Earth and they believe they live on a ball. Doesn't make any sense at all, does it?
No, it doesn't. But we're suppressed to all hell now. You know, my comment section has been alight with people telling me how we no longer appear at all in the searches. Wonderful. No wonder we're only getting less than 100 people watching us live. Because when you are over the target, you're going to get flack. And in this instance, for this channel, flack is being eradicated from the searches of YouTube. Please share the show. More so than ever. I know I say it every single show, but that's the only way you overcome that. Nobody's coming to this show because they've had it shoved under their nose via YouTube. Even if they're looking at this subject. Even if you are ingrained in this subject and a videographer making content on this subject, you will still not find me. So the only way we get to, even in this instance, 70-odd people watching is because people who are regulars share the show. And then this information makes its way to those who are interested in it, and indeed those who want to suppress it. Any scientific evidence? Oh, we've already had that. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Well, what I'm going to say here is not a direct answer to that, but it's leading into that. I just wanted to say it at the end of the last section. Space-time, according to Einstein, special relativity is a flat plane. Now, when we do celestial navigation, or when I don't do it, but when it's done, basically they're treating the sky as a one flat plane that's parallel to another flat plane below it.
That's correct.
So it's not interesting.
Yes, that's exactly what John just went through, but thank you for reiterating it. Precisely.
Well, I didn't think John was talking about that specifically, so sorry.
No, he
John,
was. He was, definitely.
pay attention.
No, he was.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I apologize. And scientific evidence for, is there any viable hypothesis? Well, what would be a viable hypothesis then? What is a viable scientific hypothesis?
A viable scientific hypothesis would be your supposition of the cause of an effect you observed in nature, formulated alongside a null, which suggests that your cause will not cause the effect you observed in nature. That's a fully formulated, viable scientific prediction, otherwise known as a hypothesis.
So if I observed, as an astronomer, if I observed a total solar eclipse in 1919, and I saw a star that appeared to be, let's just say, moved from the position that I expected it to be in, or visible when I expected it to be not visible, could I then say my cause is the bending of space-time?
No.
By an uneven distribution of mass.
You're ascribing a mathematical geometry to an already described cause and effect relationship that you have got predetermined with an outcome that's unfavourable to your prediction. Now, after your unfavourable outcome in your non-scientific prediction, you're ascribing a geometry. This is in no way scientific. Step one would be observe the phenomena if you're saying the phenomena can be either one phenomena at a time, the eclipse, or something that varies in the star described alongside the eclipse. If there's a variation that can be observed, that would be a phenomena. And you can then suppose the cause of that phenomena with the star, or in the case of the eclipse, suppose the cause of the eclipse, and then go on to vary it and see if it validates the alternative, which is your supposed cause will give you an eclipse, or validate the null, your supposed cause will not give you an eclipse. But that's it. That's the limitation of science. It's narrow. You can only take one phenomena that you've observed. Oh, why did that happen? Okay, that's your dependent variable. Why did that happen is your independent variable. I think this caused it. Well, then you just vary what you think caused it and see if it causes it or not. If it doesn't cause it, you've validated, proven, you're null. A didn't cause B. That's a null hypothesis. But getting to this, if I see an eclipse and this star... No, there's no and X when you've observed a phenomena already. The phenomena is the eclipse.
If I got like a canister of some kind of cold liquid, and I heated some of the canister, and it caused something to maybe appear slightly above it that would have been more below it, would that not be proving what I'm saying, or would that be a complete load of horse manure?
What you're trying to induce is the effect. If the effect is an explosion in your back garden, so you walk out one day, you're just standing on your porch smoking a cigarette, and suddenly there's a massive explosion in the middle of the garden, right? When you suppose a cause of that effect, what you want to happen when you vary and manipulate that which you assume caused the effect you just observed is the same effect happening. So, in other words, no explosion is the norm. That's null if you vary the wrong thing. Nothing happens, no explosion. If you vary the correct presumed cause of the effect and identically replicate that which you observed in the first instance, you have caused the phenomena to happen. Therefore, established what caused it. Now, in the case of eclipses, you need to vary something and make an eclipse happen. That is as simple as that.
Hey, there. Good morning, y'all. Good morning. Therefore, certain things you can't do with the scientific method to get them empirical, right? Some things you just can't. Some things you just have to leave it alone, right?
Like what? Give me an example.
Like the eclipse thing. How can you emulate that? How can you repeat that?
That's the question. That's the point of the method, D.
Right.
Why?
Right, but I'm saying
The question you're asking, why did that happen? The happen bit is the phenomena. Why it happened, it's just not known yet. Now, you're saying, well, it's pointless, no point pointing to the method. I suppose that the local content of the air in terms of its helium will be the causal influencer of an eclipse, D. Rose. So my scientific prediction is helium content in air between me, the viewer, and the sky will cause the eclipse to occur. That's my independent variable and my dependent variable. My null is that the variation of the helium content of the air through which the sky is viewed will not cause an eclipse. So then what do you think I do next? I vary and manipulate the amount of helium between me and the observation of the sky and see if an eclipse happens. Oh, it didn't?
Gotcha.
Was that pointless? Not at all. Tick. I just validated my null hypothesis. That's science. I proved something. I proved it wasn't that. But no, not at all. It's absolutely within the purview of science. It's right up its alley, D.
that's why, back to what you were saying to Jaron, science does prove things and disproves things. So if the methodology is used properly, you still find out empirically that helium does not cause an eclipse.
Well, I haven't done it.
So
I can say it. Don't mistake my hypothesis construction for an experiment. That's another trick they use. You formulate a hypothesis and suddenly that statement becomes true. So the variation of helium content in the air doesn't cause eclipses. Let's see the systematic experimentation that validated that null outcome. Have you got that, D?
Nope.
Well, then we haven't disproven our alternative / proven our null because we haven't done any systematic experimentation on the rather shoddy hypothesis I constructed on the fly.
Science is being crapped on in every angle you could think of. Yeah.
Sure, but do you see how I could just take my suppositional statement of cause and just in the way I verbalize it, I can just do it with inflection. The way I say it can differ. I'll give you two versions. If helium content, then eclipse. Now, if I just change the intonation, well, if helium content, then eclipses. It's the same statement.
Right.
But suddenly one is made in the affirmative, like it's a true statement. I ignore the null entirely. Let's just mention the null. Let's not mention the zero difference outcome, because that implies there's got to be an outcome. We've got to do something to get to the outcome. If I just affirm my alternative hypothesis to you with an upward inflection, helium content causes eclipses, D. Say it as an affirmative positive statement, and suddenly you've got a scientific prediction on your hands. So we've got science. See how easy that was?
Yeah.
And if you can, it's really nice if you can get anybody that challenges you to take a positive position against what you're saying.
Let's do that right now,
so if
John.
you can,
What's that you say? Helium doesn't cause eclipses. How dare you? That's science. What is it that you say causes eclipses, John, flat earth idiot?
oxygen. Oxygen's causing eclipses. Durr.
No, it doesn't. It's helium. It's science. It's in my hypothesis. Let's argue back and forth for the next 40 minutes. And because I promote the globe, my draw is basically a win when neither of us get an outcome of this totally unvalidated, non-scientific argument about two idiots formulating a hypothesis that hasn't been validated, and which one of the two unvalidated hypotheses is correct, when neither have actually been through the method because they haven't had any systematic experimentation attached to the affirmative statement called a hypothesis. So it can generally elude that we've proven something with our statements. No, we haven't. Let's argue about it for 45 minutes, John. It's not oxygen, it's helium.
And Nathan, you know what the problem is? depending on who the two parties are that's arguing, if that one party is like a Neil deGrasse or Michikuku or whatever, these people who are supposedly popular mainstream representatives of pseudoscience, but tagged as scientists, and you're just somebody from YouTube or someone who even more adept to the knowledge of the scientific methodology, they're not going to believe, the public is not going to believe you, the little guy. They're going to believe Neil. They're going to believe Michikuku. They're going to believe Becky, all of them people like that. And that's the problem. Yeah.
I hear you. We discussed this in the pre-show. My empathy wanes with every day that passes for people who want to express their beliefs in ether or Michio Kaku's pseudo-bent space-time, string theory. If you find solace in these beliefs when we are disseminating the method of science and how it operates, then more fool you. You're bad, not mine. And I'm not going to concern myself. You want the guru to replace heliocentrism. You want to believe you'll get free energy. Okay, go on. Off you go. You are not welcome here because that's not what we'll just shatter that illusion. Therefore, you won't like us. Therefore, you're not welcome.
You made a good point. When you say that's another issue that I've been talking about, I hear you're bringing up this free energy thing of so-called Tartarian pastime free energy, and we can get back to that and all these windmills and these solar panels, yada, 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 yada. The basic concept of free energy is that there has to be some type of conducive mechanism that operates the energy, right? So depending on, no matter where you live on this plane, somebody that creates this conductor of this energy, they're going to want to get paid. So, I mean, unless everybody else can build the same thing that this guy or this company builds or this inventor builds, there's never going to be any free energy. So I don't know how it was back then or how they're claiming that it could get back to that. Because even with these solar...
But just push it out there, D, and you'll
Right.
have them coming at the masses, lining up, joining your channel and standing and fighting right with you against the bad FED.
Yep.
Well, you know, when you claim free energy, you're in opposition to entropy because anything you build is going to fall apart. So how are you going to get free energy from something you're constantly having to rebuild? You have to stand against entropy to make such insane claims.
Well, it's a great concept. We can get you free energy. Just believe in the ether, and together we can free the world of this bad electric bill and the bad gas bill if that's involved in free energy.
Yeah, and for just $6.99 a month, free maintenance.
Exactly.
There's no such thing as free energy. This whole shebang is just pointless, as has just been illustrated quite eloquently by my panel. There's always going to be some process involved, even if the generation of electricity itself was completely devoid of any cost. The distribution of the electricity would still cost money. But
yeah,
there we go. Shout out to Godzilla37.
My brother claims that Tesla...
Sorry, just one sec. Shout out to Godzilla37. He says, support what you like. Also, shout out to D-Rose. He doesn't get enough love. How do you know how much love he gets? He's got a very loving wife, as I understand.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Godzilla37. Appreciate you,
shut up,
brother.
D.
Not Godzilla, it's Godzilla, number one. Number two, my brother says free energy is possible if we all had a Tesla coil in our back. We could have free energy. This is the brother that brought me to Flat Earth, but I'm sorry, he's still in a feast of nonsense. I can't get him out.
A Tesla coil?
So,
go ahead,
correct.
John. You're far better versed to cover this than I. Let's face it.
So this Tesla coil, is he going to replace the coils when they get a carbon buildup from the energy exchange?
Yes, he claims that everybody could self-maintain their own Tesla coil. Now, he's a master in air conditioning and stuff like that. His mind works in a way that I don't understand. And the way he explains it, it sounds, doable, but I don't know. Like I said, he's still in the feast of nonsense.
But Neil, that's what I'm saying. Let's not knock I don't want to knock the engineers who are the ones doing the grimy work, creating these things, just like policing or anything, the government, whatever. All the people that have these infrastructures, these political and these economic.
See, I don't want to cut you off, but I'm going to give you an example because I know where you're going. There's an Italian bakery in the area. The guy does not pay for his water. You know why? Because in his basement, he dug down, hit a vein, and made his own well. He does not pay for water. So if he gets caught, he gets major fines. So I guess you can do it if if you're inclined to do these things.
But I know in rural areas or where you have property, and of course, you may have to pay for a digging permit or whatever to dig a certain area, make sure you don't hit other lines or whatever. But you can make wells. It's going to cost you, but you still have to buy the equipment. It's going to cost you time and labor. But you can get a well and not be fined in your backyard or on your property.
Yeah, my parents have done it. It's called a borehole.
Right.
Yeah. What the hell does that have to do with free energy?
Well, I'm just saying it's getting
energy,
free
bro.
water.
Yeah,
He's getting free water, so you could do the same thing with electricity with this Tesla coil, according to my brother. Now, the guy in Brooklyn, he only had to dig, I think, 60 feet. Once he got past the
Hold on, sorry, I'm just
seawater,
getting notes. Stop. So how low down do I have to go for the electricity table?
I'm talking about water here. Didn't say anything about Tesla coil.
Yeah, we know about the water. Yeah, you can drill a borehole. Costs about 10 grand. Anyway, what about the electricity table? That's what I want to drill down to.
Yeah. He's compared it to water. Where is the electricity water at?
No. The Tesla coil handles all of that.
Okay, tell us what the Tesla coil does, Neil.
What's that? Tell us about the what?
The Tesla coil, what does it do?
Neil can't do that.
Well, my brother claims that it grabs the energy from the air, and you could run your whole house if everybody had a Tesla coil.
It grabs the energy from the air. What energy?
I guess when there's a thunderstorm, or I guess from the sun. I'm not sure, but I can find out. I'll ask him. I just shut him down right away because he sounds like one of these piece of nonsense people.
The question is, where does electricity come from?
Yeah,
and then
apparently.
The question is, how does electricity travel? What is the path, and what is the form that it travels through? Does it need to be in a copper? All of those things you have to ask yourself, and then you got to think of it. If electricity was out in the air, then why when we get wet and we go out in the pool, we don't get shocked? I don't get it. I'm just saying. This is the questions like I'm thinking about you, Daddy. If electricity is in the air, how come we go in the pool? Isn't electricity and water supposed to shock you?
I just want to stop this a second. This is a fascinating folly. It's very interesting. But as a flat Earth debate show discussing the nature of reality, the hijacking of science to claim we're on a ball, where does the energy situation come in? I mean, let's just take it away from energy for a second and make it water. Okay, there's an infrastructure in place that's been hijacked by our government, and now we're taxed and pay for something that we put in place as people. But nevertheless, there's an infrastructure there for water, and we have to pay for it. Okay? So, if somebody was peddling free water, for the sake of argument, how would that in any way connect to what we discuss, beyond the fact that there's a control mechanism over water in the same way there is over electricity?
It won't.
So what's the point of
Nothing
this?
to do with flat Earth.
Nothing to do with
I got you. There's no relevancy. I got you.
Well, the only relevancy that you could bring it to is to create a false dichotomy with gravity for the reason you're sticking to a ball.
That's
so the
what it
downward
is, right, John?
bias is a downward bias, not that we experience any downward bias, but if we allude to one because gravity's got a downward bias, holding us to a spinning ball flying through a sky vacuum that has us educated to high school level about the force of gravity, which is not a force, but you can think of it as a force even though it's spent 4D space-time, invented by Einstein about 108 years ago. Okay.
Right. So then you have an incoherent dielectric acceleration that holds you to a ball, and you argue about it, and whichever one is better is the right answer for why you stick to the side of a ball.
Alternatively, if we argue about it and me, the ball-believing idiot, is arguing the affirmative of gravity over and above your affirmative position that there's an incoherent dielectric accelerative downward bias, the draw would ultimately mean a win for the globe.
Well, even if I win, asserting a downward bias is still a win for the globe. So it's a win-win situation for them.
Certainly is.
I think the key word is incoherent there.
Well, it's the bias that's in the downward variety that would be something that if you overcome this argument at base level, you understand that there is no downward bias to assert to be arguing about in the first place. What downward bias? Looks up at clouds, releases helium balloon.
Well, I think that's the quick way to end it. Or you could argue endlessly, which I think most people just want an argument, right? They just want to hear the drama of the situation. They don't want to know the facts or anything like that. They just want to hear people argue.
Well, I was told all I have is helium, clouds, and nothing else does not go down. Besides those things, everything goes down. That's what I was told this very weekend.
Besides that, everything.
Well, see, that's not true either. Like, entropy is not a direction. So anything small enough will not fall down.
So we're all clear. No bias. The only reason we've got a bias in the first instance is to have us stuck to a side of a spinning water ball flying through a sky vacuum. It's the only reason we're arguing about this. There's no benefit to a positive flat earth claim of a downward bias. What does it benefit a flat earther to say there's a downward bias? Other than offering a false dichotomy to our opponents. Now, we've been discussing globebusters quite a lot on this particular show, but they offer that up on a platter as a false dichotomy.
Right, but it's interesting they got that false dichotomy from the electric universe, which is a heliocentric concept.
Correct.
Is it not?
It is. An alternative heliocentric universe, ball Earth in tow.
Well, they don't hide it. They say, see, gravity not needed. That's Wittgenstein. No need for gravity. We have this now.
Right, and if you're a baller, you could take that statement and say, see, that's how you stick to the side of a ball, Whitsit.
Yeah, incoherent dielectric acceleration keeps us pegged to a side of a spinning water ball flying through a sky vacuum. Speaking of which, any evidence that you can have the gas pressure that we're all breathing currently without a container?
No, I could demonstrate it, but I need about 3 or 4 containers.
That's not going to fly.
That's the net container zero argument, I think.
2 containers equals net container 0.
Well, if you have one container on one side of the equation and one container on the other side of the equation, and you just mark those containers out, and then that's math.
Net container 0 makes perfect sense. Meanwhile, in terms of physics, the gas would need something to press upon. The effect would be the pressure. The cause would be the force of the gas exerting its pressing motion on the walls of that container. That's how you develop gas pressure.
Blue Marble Science demonstrated an open pipe, and Nathan, it was still there.
Sorry.
You know, it didn't fly off into space like you say.
It did. It would have eventually dispersed, Neil. That's entropy. It's a law of nature. The second law of thermodynamics in this instance. So yes, an open container. Let's just address the elephant in the room first. That would be a container, Neil.
Oh dear.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
If I use angles from a flat plane, can I assert a heliocentric universe and then give a distance based on the angles from a flat Earth?
Yes, you can. And people do.
Okay.
It's shocking, isn't it?
How would you get the distance to the sun anyway? How would you actually do that?
Well, first you need to know what it is.
Well, you could use a form of trigonometry from a flat plane and then assert that the flat plane is actually changing from the horizontal to give you parallel lines from the sun.
That
And
won't
then
give
you
you a
assert
distance. It'll give you the distance at that moment if you infer that the trig is giving you a distance. But an hour later, the sun will be in a different position, lower to the horizon or higher away from the horizon. Well, if you do the trig then, is it got higher? Maybe it has, but we don't know what it is. You can't, with trig measurements, get a fixed distance. It's going to change, isn't it? Shout out to Brian first to point this out.
Yeah, I guess that'll be a problem for them.
Wait,
too.
I missed that. What'd you say? Without what?
Your angle, if you're measuring an angle to the sun and it's 1 degree above the horizon, Neil, can you appreciate that if you're drawing out a triangle to represent that, you've got a really long baseline and a really long hypotenuse? Yeah?
Yes.
The opposite is really short. You with me so far?
Yes.
So we're going to say that in this instance, that 1 degree, we'll say, well, that's 1 degree above the horizon, and along the ground, it's 60 nautical miles. So let's just say it's 60 nautical miles, just for ease of description, above the horizon. Okay? Now measure it at midday. You happen to be in a location where the sun at midday is directly above your head. Yeah? Or let's say it's 1 degree less than at your zenith. Now, you've got a completely opposite type of triangle, haven't you? You've got a really short adjacent and a really, really long hypotenuse and opposite. Well, if you did the trig on that, it would be very, very high, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So it's changed.
Well, it's the opposite of that triangle. If you get rid of that, right, and you assert that the rays are parallel, and then you assert it's a physical object in a sky vacuum,
I
and
see.
you take the
So you're saying we take the angle from a flat plane and then infer that the ground itself is like the protractor?
well, not yet. We got to work up to that. It'll be a few minutes. I got to lead you along a whole bunch of presuppositions.
Oh, okay. I'll mute up.
So after we've taken this angle measurement from a flat plane to establish the celestial sphere, now we have an object within the celestial sphere that we can measure an angular size to, and it's about the size of a dime if you hold a dime at arm's length when you look at it through filters. So we have a size, it's an angular size, but we can build a scaling value with that. Has anybody got a problem with that so far?
Yes, but carry on.
Are you saying angular size or angle size?
Let's not go there. Carry on.
Well, yeah, it would be an angle size, I guess you could say that. But it's just apparent. But anyway, you've got the the angle there. And you can establish a scale, just like with the dime, as it comes closer to your eye or further away, it gets smaller or bigger. So, and we're not seeing that change. So therefore the light has to be parallel to the flat plane we're measuring from, but that's only in the celestial sphere model that we're going to apply the heliocentric motions in to give us the idea that Venus is a planet like we are. Now that's when we're going to turn the surface of the ground into the sphere. Has anybody got a problem with that?
That's the point, that we're taking the flat plane measurement that you just described in two instances and inferring that the measurement, if we're backing away from a star, for instance, and it's declining towards the horizon by way of angle measurement, that is actually the rotation of the ground we're standing upon, moving that towards the horizon, as opposed to us just measuring it because we're backing away from it.
Yeah, okay. We're good with that. So
Okay. Well,
that
I mean,
okay.
both the heliocentric motions that you're going to be describing have originated from a flat plane, and the measurement of the angle in this instance is also being measured from a flat plane. Therefore, the conversion doesn't sound like it's going to be a problem.
Okay, well then you imagine that the sphere Earth that is the outside of that protractor is, that 3959 you calculated.
So it's a massive protractor. Gotcha.
Right, you're on the outside of that massive protractor now. And so you'll set another protractor on it and balance it like a teeter-totter. Man, I forgot where I was at. I've had to make too many assumptions. I have to rethink this one.
No, you were doing really well. You got to the point where we derived a heliocentric model from a flat plane, and now we're taking tangents from a dingleberry Earth derived from a flat plane that's actually the outside edge of a protractor that we use to derive the star height. I think it was height that you were going to. Is that enough to jog your memory?
Oh, yeah. We're not using height. We're using parallel light. So we're just using the flat plane at the center of the sphere as we're on a sphere in a sphere. So now that you have the ratio for the planetary systems within that heliocentric model you derive from a flat plane, then you just need to make an assumption that Venus is the same size of the sphere as the one you're standing on. And you can use that scale to figure out how far away the sun is based on its size.
Ingenious. If only Kepler hadn't got there before you, and then Huygens hadn't followed through with the assumption of Venus being the same size as the now protractor-based Earth that gave us the flat plane derivation of a sphere that is the protractor. So yes, ingenious. I don't see any problem with this whatsoever. Because it all comes from
on the shoulders of giants,
Well, I was just going to say, because it's all derived from a flat plane in the first instance, I mean, it's a load of old nonsense in terms of the reification of the sphere when it's the protractor. And that is what the majority of the Western world does. But ultimately, no, I've got no problem with that. It's all derived from a flat plane. Maybe we should just accept that.
About then, is there?
Let's just pack up. The globe came from a flat plane. We know it. You don't. You still reify it into an actual globe. Oh, well, more for you. That's it, lads. We're done. We're packing up. No, I'm only joking. But with that, I am going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. But unfortunately, this is where we bid you farewell if you are watching live. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, hit me up on PayPal. More importantly than ever, shared the show. So this is going to be labelled a housekeeping show. And a very good introduction to anybody who's not come across all the housekeeping questions, as we've covered them in pretty much their entirety in this one show. So please smash the share button. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
fucking day.